Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back.
And hopefully there will be no echoing. We're on the other computer this time.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
So we're looking at 6.2 in Indonesia. And, this is a case where I just said to Cindy, I said, where's all the aftershocks? They're not showing any on the USGS. But as we know, USGS can be lacking at times, so we jump over to CSEM and look at all the aftershocks. There you go. There's tons of them.
There, never disappointing moment.
Yeah, right. Well, this was a horrible one. So, let's ask everybody to send prayers and best wishes out to everybody over there that has been affected.
Please do. It's really, really important. I feel these people are suffering really bad.
And as we said, I can't think of a place on the globe that is probably more affected by the earth changes than Indonesia. So this would be, just off the top of my head, I would say this would be, to me, one of the most dangerous places on the globe from an earth change point of view, because they get everything there.
I know. I feel so bad for them. What they have to deal with and go through is so sad.
So at least 37 people killed at the moment, hundreds injured, 6.2 quake, West Sulawesi, Indonesia. And this was a shallow one. And this one occurred at 1828 UTC on the 14th. And many people are still trapped under the rubble. That's got to be absolutely terrifying. The death toll probably will rise.
That's really unfortunate.
And, this was preceded by a 5.7, so let's hope there's nothing larger coming as well.
I know. We got to keep an eye out for those.
And you can see the damage. There's lots of videos here. The damage is great. Lots of structures down. As you see the area where it came, a friend of mine spent several months in Indonesia on a trip and loved it. And the people were very, very friendly. The area was absolutely gorgeous. But definitely, it's one of the more dangerous spots on the globe.
Yeah, that's too bad. Beautiful, but dangerous.
I'll give you guys all the links, as you can see. Now, it's interesting because we've been talking about at what point is it going to start to get consistently colder, because we've had the wild swings. I think we're going to still get the wild swings for a while, but I think we might be starting to turn the edge to where we're going to see a consistent tendency to head towards a colder globe.
Well, that's kind of what I'm noticing too. It's definitely kind of inching that way.
So we have ice covering the deserts of Ain Sefra, and this is in Algeria. And it has covered once again the Algerian town of Ain Sefra, the gateway to the Sahara, fourth winter in a row that they've gotten snow or ice reports in the area. So again, starting to get a little bit more consistent. Freezing temperatures in Saudi Arabia's Sir for the first time since 1971.
There goes those records.
Yeah, heavy snow leaves 7,000 households without power across Sweden and Finland. And when you think about it, if we're heading into a real ice age, that area, Sweden, Finland, Norway, it's going to get tough up there.
I know. I mean, that's already pretty tough as it is. That kind of that kind of terrain. It's not easy. Definitely not easy.
It's interesting because I'm glancing at the clock, and it's like just when we said that it was 3 minutes and 33 seconds into the video, and when we were talking about sending prayers out, it was like at 1:11. It's all those interesting numerological coincidences.
Those little things that say you're in alignment.
4,000 households without electricity in Finland, 3,000 in Sweden. And again, if you're in like a city, what happens if we go with like 6 months, without power, as our government has said here in the USA, to be prepared for? In those areas, if you don't have a wood-burning stove and you don't have an ample supply of wood, it's going to be tough. It's going to be brutal.
It is. I would be very, very careful and very prepared.
24 inches of snow accumulated as well. Whew. The cold times are coming, guys. Cold times.
I'm sitting here shaking just as we look and read this.
Yeah, but again, we've been trying to deal with without putting on too much heat in this little cabin that we've been staying in. And we've done pretty good. We've gotten used to, having temperatures even in like the 50s inside. which, because the building itself, the little structure is built down into the earth and has a bank of south-facing windows. Again, if you construct things the right way, you don't need much natural resources to heat and to cool a building. Again, it's being smart and recognizing the times that we're in.
It really, really is. That's super important, you guys.
Dal Lake freezes. Srinagar records coldest night in 30 years. Severe cold wave grips Kashmir in India. And you could see these guys playing around out there.
Those little turds. I would never let my kids do that. I wonder if their parents know.
I know, and we have a lake pretty close to us that we go to, and it's frozen solid over, but still I would be nervous with the kids playing out on it.
Well, we have seen drawings on it, people making like happy faces. It just makes me nervous to even see it.
And making political statements too.
Oh, they
did.
Yep.
Lava dome continues to grow at Soufriere, and this is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And then not far from there, we have Martinique, which is a beautiful island, and Pele has been showing signs of activity. We're waiting to see if Pele goes, and then of course we're watching over in Italy as well because of what Casey has said. So this lava dome keeps increasing, and while I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna jump back over here. Our brother Netsaya sent me text saying, look at Kilauea, because he's feeling that it's going to be going, that we might have an eruption. We do have 28 quakes on the island over in Hawaii, and we can see quite a swarm building there. Let's see, threes, mostly threes, twos. But yeah, definitely a swarm building, and of course Kilauea's been active and interesting as well with the island that's sitting there amidst the lava, just floating. Interesting stuff. There was also a pretty good sized one down here in Guatemala, 5.9 as well. That's a pretty big one there too.
That is pretty big.
It is. And then, of course, looking over at Nevada, we've always had this swarm over by Tonopah, to the west of Tonopah. Here's Tonopah, tiny little town that every now and then we go do food shopping in. This has been active ever since that large one over a year ago. And, of course, China Lake's been active, too. And, whether they're battling the reptilians down there, we don't know. It's curious, of course, this is again a military base, and this is again a military base. And, this, like, if war did break out, we were living almost on base, so close to it. Not a good thing, because that's a huge target. And we talked about those quote-unquote rods from God, which can penetrate well down into the surface. And I wouldn't doubt some sort of weaponry like that could be used against these bases, which would most definitely be targets if something broke out with the fine dining ware country.
Yeah, very well could be. Yeah, we got to keep an eye on stuff like that.
And we have a lot of cases of this going on. Water suddenly turns pink, smells foul, kills fish in Singapore. As you see, that's kind of a magenta-y color there, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of don't like it even still.
It has a sulfurous sewage-like smell coming off of it as well in the mass die-off. Now, we've seen this in Russia several times.
And I wonder who did that. I'm sure it's some sort of dump.
So they're telling residents refrain from any water sport activities till they figure out what is doing this, They think it's probably some sort of algae bloom, which we've seen, and a lot of times those are triggered by runoff of an industrial kind. And this makes me want to jump to the end, but I'll be patient, because really none of this has to be if we would just, get ourselves into, looking at the planet in a more benevolent light. It's just crazy. Giant flare sweeps through solar system after powerful explosion, scientists say. I saw Corey Good tweet this out. Such explosions could affect phone signal today and help us understand the very beginnings of the universe. Now, this was actually something that happened a while ago. On April 15th, 2020, a brief burst of high-energy light swept through the solar system. triggering instruments on several NASA and European spacecraft. Now, multiple international science teams conclude the blast came from a supermagnetized stellar remnant known as a magnetar, which is located in a neighboring galaxy, not even in our galaxy. But this confirms the long-held suspicions that some gamma-ray bursts, cosmic eruptions detected in the sky almost daily, are in fact flares from magnetars relatively close to home. And, again, the Hulk, right? Gamma radiation, look what happens. It causes mutations. Not always bad, though. We're taught to be terrified of any sort of anything from the sun, and that's on purpose.
Yeah.
That is completely on purpose. Again, who do we trust? Do we trust people like BG, who's buying up all the farmland? And, why is that being bought up? Is it for a benevolent reason? Is it to drive prices up? Is it to have land lay, unused in times of crisis? It just reeks of cattle barons. It reeks of the aristocracy and kingship in the old Middle Ages, where people would be striving to just grow enough carrots and potatoes, and maybe they have one goat for milk and stuff, and you gotta pay your taxes, and here comes the king's men grabbing your goat away, taking half of your carrots and potatoes, and then the people end up starving to death.
And he who has the gold makes the rules.
That's sad. That's why we have to get off of this money system, because that's how we are controlled. And, I know a lot of people are into Bitcoin and stuff, but that's just digits. Our whole money system is digits. It's nothing, you need more money? Okay, let's add a zero. How do we know what's there? We don't know what's there. It's just their system. They could keep adding zeros all day long. So, if you're looking at Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos being the most powerful men because they have the most money, not necessarily the case, because when we get to these banking families, they need more money, just add a digit. That's why I don't really believe in Bitcoin. I think that's falling into their type of system that they want to have. I think we have to go back to a simpler way, more like barter and trade. More like, okay, I'll give you a dozen eggs if you give me, 2 dozen carrots and a dozen potatoes, something like that. We have to go back to a much more simpler way of doing things where there are no middlemen, because middlemen have gotten fat off of everything. Just think about that. Like, I'm going to go try to close out a bank account that I've had where, it's not making any interest. It's actually they're charging, to whatever you would say, administer the account, and it's just ridiculous. This is how we have given our power away, is through the banking system. So personally for me, and I know there's a ton of people out there that are so into Bitcoin and all that type of system, I think it's just another trap. It's just another trap that they're setting up because it's not real. It's not real, and I don't believe that's the way we're going to get out of this. I think when things are all said and done and the dust settles, we'll be back to, trading chicken for goats, basically, and veggies for fruit. I think that's where we'll be.
And I think because our heart chakras are getting bigger, it's not going to be so difficult to talk to your neighbors and get your neighbors on board with that. I don't think that communities need to come together in such a deliberate manner. I think that they're going to be organic grown from where they're at.
So, here again, we see more evidence of like energy influx that can change us in so many ways. Change consciousness, change the body, change the DNA. And also, can take out grids, can take out the system as well. And at some point in time, I do think we have seen there'll be this galactic superwave that comes in, and everything is going to get fried electronically. That's coming. That's just a matter of time. Right now, though, what we have gotten is that's still a ways off before we get the big one. But we will have all these little ones. We're going to have a lot of these little ones. We've seen, blackouts all over the place. And, of course, there's also the line of thinking that these blackouts have to do with roundups. And, perhaps there's some truth to that, or perhaps it's more deception. Time will tell as far as that goes. And this last article, Life Science, the planet's dying faster than we thought. Triple threat of climate change, biodiversity loss, and overpopulation is bearing down on the Earth. We could comfortably fit the entire world's population into Texas and still be fine if we did things in a better way. It's the system. It's all the fracking. It's all the abuse of the system, the dumping of toxins by these huge corporations. Honestly, if we eliminated the whole concept of corporation from the world, we would be in a much better place.
Oh my gosh, we so would, because I've seen, systems like on YouTube where they have used every bit of everything organic and just made it feed off of itself, and it's so beautiful.
They always want to put the blame on the masses, where the blame actually lies on the system, which is a top-down system that's put into effect by the aristocracy, so to speak, in which in this case the aristocracy is the CEOs and the COOs and the powers behind that. And it's the system itself. So the first thing that needs to go is the false system, which is controlled through the monetary system. And they want to do that, but they want to give us a worse system of even more control. So what we need is exactly the opposite. We need to go back to an older way of doing things. We need to live in harmony with the earth as the indigenous people did in Australia before any Europeans came into Australia. When the Aboriginal people were living there by themselves, do you think there was any sort of ecological disaster going on? Was there any sort of ecological disaster going on in the Americas, before the invasions that came? No. Of course, you could say, well, we didn't have the Industrial Revolution, but the Industrial Revolution is a product of, again, the system. Who brought on this Industrial Revolution? Well, ultimately, it's that Holy Roman Empire that's been morphing into many different things, the British Empire and then the American Empire after that, which is still an extension and just basically a tool of these, aristocratic families that have run things for thousands of years. It's their system, and that's why the planet is dying. And why is it dying? Why is it their system? Because they're under the influence of these beings that have ruined other planets as well. Just look to Mars, and then, as we've said, we've actually remote viewed Nibiru, and it's really more of a ship than a planet. You could equate Nibiru to Darth Vader, so to speak. You know how Darth Vader is more of a machine than a man, as it's said. Well, that's the same thing with Nibiru and the system. And that's what they have in plan for the U.S. and for the entire world. When we look at, say, remember the movie Independence Day, guys? And I forget if it was the first one or the second one. They give us lots of clues. They call the quote-unquote aliens that are coming in like locusts. They just go from planet to planet, just taking the natural resources and moving on to another. Well, that's obviously what's in place here. It becomes obvious, and some of you have made comments saying, it hit me all of a sudden. I'm looking at everything going on and thinking, wow, they can't be from here. There's no way they can be indigenous to here and treat the world in that respect. But look at the Roman Empire. What did it do? Well, it would conquer an area, put a puppet in, and then they pay their taxes and send all their best goods, etc., to the empire. It's the same thing in effect here on Earth. And, how do we know where all the natural resources end up being leached off to? How do we really, really know as we're getting closer and closer, to disclosure? How do we know? And then we see the agreements that have been put in effect. We've heard about those agreements, which include, some humans being taken for whatever reason. And, others like Corey Good have talked about the galactic slave trade as well. And it is a real thing. And then again, use discernment when you watch things coming out, because again, everybody is under pressure. And you might get 90% truth, maybe 95%, maybe even 99%, but there might be 1% in there that's trying to sway you into a different line of thinking.
That's right, and that's what I was going to say. Even when it comes to disclosure, really use your heart. use your mind, use common sense. And, you know, if somebody's saying, oh, so-and-so was arrested, well, if they don't show it, you know, come on, think about that.
Yeah, and what is going on now is there are a lot of sources that are coming out and giving info about disclosure, and some of them are saying things that are going to make people very, very afraid of the GF. If you guys know what GF is, and that's purposeful. And think again, when the reason why Nazi Germany was so powerful was because of the technology they had gotten from their contacting these secret beings, which, you know, again, the Thule Society was all about making contact with certain beings that could give them technology and an edge. They went all around looking for the spear of Longinus. Longinus is the centurion that, you know, basically stuck the spear in the side of Christ, and recognized so much of what we get is so divisory on purpose. The speaker for number one, you know, made a tweet today, and there was a pastor who's under Billy G. You remember him, right? And I don't think they recognize that what they're saying is very, very divisive, but it can be very divisive because they're taking certain biblical quotes that sound very, very clear and authoritarian and putting it out there. And I could see what they're doing. You know, it's so clear that they're trying to manipulate the RR, the religious right, quote unquote, the fundamentalists. They're trying to get them up in arms, you know, and make them feel it's an attack on Christendom. But when we look to APIKE 1871, this is all about creating, you know, conflict. It's all about creating 3 WWs, and we've seen 2, and a third is to come. Nostradamus talked about 3 ACs. We've seen 2, a third is to come. This is all part of a much bigger plan, and this is all part of the control system and the control grid. So when we become so dogmatic that, you know, we're like a rabid animal out there ready to defend our beliefs no matter what the cause, then we're easily manipulated. So easily manipulated. Just, you know, turn their shoulders in that direction, pat them on the butt and say, go get them. And they're going to go get them without thinking. And that's what they want. They don't want you to use thinking. They don't want you to also feel from the heart chakra. They want you to be easily manipulated and enticed into action, even when it's going to cause a negative reaction.
Most definitely. And, you know, they use a lot of times, they use the planetary alignments to give things a little boost or a little shove. So, you know, if people are feeling a little bit, even, you know, at the ground level, combative, you realize that that's a planetary alignment bringing that vibration down, and it comes from grassroots all the way up. So it's up to us to really watch that feeling of combativeness and keep it in check. You know, don't get angry and quickly manipulated. Just go within and get calm, because that's what they want out of us, is they want to feed off of that anger.
Yeah, they have so conditioned us into either or isms. It's constantly either or. You're either on the left or you're on the right. You're either this or you're that. There cannot be anything else. Capitalist, communist. There's nothing else, not in the middle. When, you know, there can be all of the above in many cases, you know, such as we've talked about. You know, there's, in the fundamentalist line, we'll see people all the time saying, there's no aliens. They're all demons. And again, that's like saying every single bird in the sky is a sparrow. It's not the case. Every single thing in the ocean is a whale. That's not the case. You know, not every animal, not everything that walks on the earth is a dog. You know, that is such backward thinking. And that's exactly what they want. They want, you know, ignorant thinking. They want blind thinking, blind obedience. It's not the case. But that doesn't mean that there is no demonic influence. For sure there is. And that doesn't mean that there aren't all these horrible Satanic rituals going on, because they are. That most definitely, you know, it's, again, they try to get you with, they're putting blinders on everybody. They're putting blinders on the right. They're putting blinders on the left. And again, they're setting both sides off to just go and be like two trains on the same track heading for complete mutual destruction.
I know, it's pretty awful, but they've mastered it. They've made a great game of it.
There's no reason for the planet to be dying at all. The planet could be thriving, and life could be thriving. And no, we're not overpopulated. We're just not living in harmony with the planet. And so these are all excuses for just, pushing forth different agendas. And that's really the bottom line.
And it's so sad, but what's really going to help is just simple recognition that we know that something different than what we think is running the show.
Absolutely. So guys, thank you for your support, and also make sure you are subscribed. And we are also on both of the B's, Brighteon and Bitchute as well, as we have to spell for, why we're spelling. Thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Have a plan out there. Be ready for anything. Keep your heart and spirits up. Keep praying that the darkness be lifted from the planet. And in whatever manner you want to pray, that's fine. It's the intent that counts. It doesn't matter what rituals you use, what dogma you use. It's the intent. It's where your heart is.
God bless and namaste.
God bless and namaste.